ladies and gentlemen, there is a quiet strength in choosing to keep certain things to yourself. We live in a world where sharing is encouraged, even expected, but there's a power that lies in the things left unsaid, the dreams held close, the process protected in silence. This isn't about being secretive or distant. It's about being intentional. Because when you learn to value privacy, you learn to value your peace, your energy, and your focus, all of which are essential ingredients to real success. There is something sacred about moving in silence. In a world that constantly pushes us to share everything, to post every moment, to announce every intention, there's a rare power in keeping certain parts of your journey private. Privacy doesn't mean secrecy. It means maturity. It means you've reached a place where you no longer seek approval to pursue your goals. You no longer need applause to keep moving. You understand that your dreams are fragile when they're first forming, and too many opinions too early can shake your faith in them. That is why those who succeed often say little until they've done much. They are not hiding. They are protecting. They are not avoiding. They are focusing. Your dreams require that level of respect. They require you to build before you broadcast, to heal before you explain, to understand yourself before inviting others in. There's a reason why people are encouraged to protect their peace. When you share your plans too soon, you open the door to noise. That noise can come in the form of doubt, jealousy, unsolicited advice, or even passive discouragement. Some will question your timing, your decisions, your reasons, not because they know what's best for you, but because they don't understand what's best for themselves. And if you're not careful, their uncertainty becomes your confusion. Their fear becomes your hesitation. Their limitation becomes your ceiling. That's why privacy is powerful. It keeps you centered in your own truth. It allows you to hear your own voice clearly without interference. It gives you the space to adjust, to learn, to grow at your pace without feeling watched or judged. That space is not a luxury. It's a necessity. Your journey to success is not a performance. It's a process. And every process needs boundaries. When you constantly open your life to public consumption, you give away the one thing you cannot afford to lose: your energy. That energy is what fuels your creativity, your resilience, your clarity. Every time you explain yourself unnecessarily, you waste that fuel. Every time you seek validation for a vision only you were given, you burn that fuel. And eventually you start feeling tired, not because the dream is too big, but because too many people are draining your focus. Privacy is how you take your power back. It's how you tell the world, I don't need your confirmation to become what I already believe I am. People often confuse being private with being distant. But there's a difference. Being distant is disconnecting from everything and everyone out of fear. Being private is choosing to connect deeply with yourself and your path before letting others in. It's strength, not withdrawal. It's discipline, not distrust. You're not required to prove anything to anyone. You're not obligated to explain the season you're in. You have the right to build quietly. You have the right to protect your progress. And you have the right to show up when you're ready, not when others are curious. Success thrives in silence, not because it's trying to hide, but because it understands that noise is the enemy of focus. You don't need a crowd to believe in your vision. You need courage. You need consistency. You need commitment. And all of those grow stronger when they're protected. Privacy allows you to sharpen your skills without pressure. It lets you fail without being watched. It lets you rise without distraction. It lets you win without ever needing to shout. Because the loudest proof of progress is peace, and the greatest sign of success is when you no longer need to talk about it to feel it. There is strength in the things we choose not to say. When you begin to understand the value of your goals, your healing, and your growth, you stop placing them in front of everyone else. You begin to recognize that privacy is not about secrecy, but about stewardship. You are protecting what is sacred to you. You are choosing to guard your progress while it's still vulnerable. Just like a fire needs shelter from the wind to keep burning, your purpose needs protection from noise to keep growing. There is wisdom in keeping your plans, your process, and even your pain to yourself until you've processed, prepared, and positioned yourself with strength. Privacy is not weakness, it's maturity. It shows you trust yourself enough not to need applause to move forward. You know where you're going, even if no one else does. And that's more powerful than any public approval. There are moments when you feel like sharing everything, especially when you're excited. You want to tell people what you're working on, where you're headed, what you're about to accomplish. But excitement without protection invites exposure, and exposure without readiness invites interference. Sometimes people won't mean to discourage you, but they will. Sometimes they won't intend to plant doubt, but they do. That's why silence is sometimes your greatest defense, not against people, but against distraction. The more you share, the more opinions you'll attract, and not all of them are rooted in wisdom or love. Some come from insecurity, some come from fear, some come from control. You must learn to trust the power of your own conviction more than the comfort of being understood. Because the truth is, most people won't understand where you're going until you've already arrived. Privacy gives you the room to change without being caged by people's expectations. When others don't know what you're working on, they can't box you into old labels. They can't measure you by yesterday's mistakes. They can't hold you to what they think you should be. You are free to evolve without explanation. You are free to grow in directions that surprise even you. And that freedom is necessary because real growth, the kind that transforms your life, is messy. It's uncertain. It involves failure, tears, restarts, and uncomfortable choices. If you let too many people into that sacred space, you risk absorbing their doubts and shame about your process. You begin adjusting your journey to their comfort instead of your calling. And in doing so, you weaken the very thing that makes your journey yours, your authenticity. The truth is, success that lasts is not built on performance. It's built on depth. And depth requires solitude. It requires you to sit with your thoughts, your lessons, and your intentions. It requires you to develop in the dark. Everyone wants the spotlight, but few are willing to do the work when no one's watching. Privacy separates those who are performing from those who are becoming. When you don't need to be seen to feel valuable, you are free to focus entirely on becoming excellent at what you do. And when you emerge stronger, more aligned, more prepared. Not because you were hiding, but because you were building. You don't owe the world a constant update. You don't owe anyone a timeline or a detailed explanation. What you owe is honesty to yourself and discipline toward your goals. Privacy is not about pushing people away. It's about inviting yourself inward. It's about creating a space where you can hear your own voice clearly. That voice will guide you further than any crowd ever could. And when the moment comes to speak, to share, to step forward, you'll do so not for validation, but from conviction. And that is the real power behind success, the ability to build it without the need to broadcast it. Sometimes the loudest moves are made in silence. The world teaches you that visibility equals value, that if you're not constantly showing your progress, you're not making any. But the truth is, the most powerful breakthroughs happen behind closed doors. The most meaningful growth isn't loud or flashy. It's personal, quiet, intentional. Privacy in your journey to success is not just about what you keep to yourself, but why you choose to keep it there. You're not being distant. You're being wise. You're not avoiding people. You're protecting your purpose. Because once you understand that not every voice deserves access to your process, you become far more selective about what you share and when. You realize that the wrong audience can kill the right idea before it even has a chance to breathe. There is peace in not explaining everything. There is power in not responding to every question, every curiosity, every invitation to overshare. When you are focused on something real, something that demands your energy, your time, your sacrifice, you begin to see that words can often be a distraction. When you're always explaining, you're not always executing. When you're too busy defending your dreams, you lose time actually building them. Silence is not a lack of ambition, it's the evidence of it. It shows that you are so committed to your path that you are willing to be misunderstood in the short term for the sake of long-term alignment. That's not just emotional intelligence, it's discipline. And in that discipline, you find clarity. The less you say, the more space you have to think. You stop seeking permission. You stop performing. You stop editing yourself to make your vision digestible for others. Because real success isn't about being liked, it's about being aligned. And alignment often requires solitude. It requires getting away from opinions that distract you and energies that drain you. Not because you're cold, but because you're clear. You understand that your future is too important to be up for discussion with people who haven't done the work to see it. You don't need their validation because you've already validated it within yourself. You've taken the time to sit with your vision, to work through your fears, to take the steps that most people talk about but never take. That's what privacy gives you, the room to do the work instead of just talking about it. When you learn to move privately, you stop looking for motivation in applause. You stop needing recognition to feel accomplished. That's when your confidence shifts from external to internal. You begin to trust your own voice, your own instincts, your own timing. You're no longer shaken by people's doubts or silences or absence of support. Because success no longer looks like people noticing you. It looks like you noticing yourself, being proud of yourself, respecting your own process. And when that becomes your fuel, there's nothing that can stop you. You'll start to see results not because you talked about them, but because you stayed consistent when no one was watching. So let people wonder, let them guess, let them fill in the blanks with their own stories. You don't owe them your truth until you're ready to share it. And when you are ready, it won't be to prove anything. It will be because you've lived through enough to speak from a place of experience, not performance. The power of privacy is that it allows you to evolve on your own terms. It teaches you that success doesn't need a spotlight. It needs structure. It needs time, faith, resilience, and boundaries. And if you can hold your vision in silence long enough, it will speak volumes all by itself. There's something deeply empowering about doing the work without needing to talk about it. In a time where everyone feels the urge to announce their every move, it takes a different kind of strength to remain silent and focused. That silence is not emptiness. It is intention. You're not being quiet because you don't have plans. You're being quiet because you respect those plans enough to protect them. You're nurturing what matters to you behind the scenes, and that kind of discipline creates a foundation so strong, no amount of noise can shake it. When you realize that real growth happens in private, you stop trying to prove yourself to people who were never meant to understand your process in the first place. You're not here to perform. You're here to build, and building requires space, peace, and privacy. When too many eyes are watching, too many voices are talking. And when too many voices are talking, it becomes harder to hear your own. You start to question your timing, your decisions, your direction, all because you let outside perspectives invade your internal clarity. That's why silence is necessary. It filters the noise. It keeps you grounded. It allows you to remain in control of your energy instead of giving it away for free in the form of over-explaining, over-sharing, or over-justifying. You don't need to convince anyone of where you're going when you know in your heart that you're moving with purpose. Privacy isn't about cutting people off. It's about setting a boundary between your process and their perception. Everyone has an opinion, but not all opinions are relevant to your journey. When you share too soon, you invite too many opinions too early. And when those opinions get in your head, they can slow you down or shift your focus. Protecting your progress isn't about being secretive. It's about being smart. Not everyone needs to know what you're doing. Not everyone needs to understand your next move. Some things grow better in silence. Some wins are sweeter when they're achieved without pressure or performance. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to keep your success to yourself until it's undeniable. Not because you're hiding, but because you're mastering the art of patience. You're allowing your process to unfold without being rushed by public expectation. You're choosing to succeed quietly so you can win loudly, not with words, but with results. And when those results come, they'll be unshakable because they were built in truth, not shaped by the shifting opinions of others. You didn't chase recognition. You earned respect. And that kind of success lasts longer than any moment of applause ever could. One of the most freeing realizations you can have is that you don't need to be seen to be significant. You don't need constant validation to stay committed. Your worth is not tied to visibility. It's tied to consistency, to effort, to your ability to stay loyal to a vision no one else can see but you. And in that space of privacy, something beautiful happens. You grow in ways you never could if you were constantly performing for an audience. You find your rhythm. You gain confidence that doesn't depend on attention. You develop discipline that doesn't waver when no one is watching. Let the world talk while you work. Let them wonder while you grow. You don't owe them proof until you're ready. And when that moment comes, your life will speak for itself. Not because you shouted your way to the top, but because you moved in silence and let your results do the talking. That is the power of privacy. That is how success is truly built. There is an undeniable power in moving quietly towards something meaningful. In a world that thrives on constant updates and attention, The choice to keep your journey private becomes revolutionary. Privacy isn't about cutting people out or hiding your intentions. It's about understanding the value of timing, energy, and focus. When you choose to keep your plans to yourself, you give them space to grow without interference. You protect them from judgment, comparison, doubt, and the pressure to perform. That protection is not selfish, it's wise. Because not every step forward needs to be announced. Some steps are sacred, personal, and too important to be shared before they're ready. When you open the door too early, you let in voices that haven't earned the right to speak over your progress. These voices, whether well-meaning or not, can distort your clarity. They can plant seeds of fear, distraction, and confusion where confidence once lived. You may begin to overthink decisions, question your pace, or doubt your vision, not because it lacks strength, because you've let too many opinions weigh it down. Silence keeps you connected to your why. It helps you focus on the purpose behind your actions instead of the perception others have of them. And in that silence, you begin to trust yourself more deeply. You stop reaching outward for answers and start listening inward for truth. Privacy also protects your energy, which is one of your most valuable assets. Every conversation where you explain your intentions, every interaction where you seek approval, costs you something. It takes away from the energy you could have used to work, create, rest, or grow. There's a difference between sharing for connection and sharing for validation. One is rooted in confidence, the other in insecurity. When you don't feel the need to prove anything to anyone, you operate from a place of power. You move with certainty, not because others believe in you, but because you believe in yourself. And that internal belief, when cultivated in private, becomes unshakable. The truth is, you don't need to be seen to be significant. You don't need likes, attention, or external recognition to know you're on the right path. Some of the most successful, fulfilled, and grounded people built their lives in silence. They chose privacy not out of fear, but out of focus. They knew that the more time they spent trying to explain themselves, the less time they had to become who they were meant to be. And when the time came to share their success, it was clear, complete, and undeniable. Not because they had talked about it for years, but because they had done the work quietly and consistently. There's also healing in privacy. When you're growing, especially after failure or heartbreak, or a major life shift, not everyone needs access to your pain or your process. Growth is personal. It's messy. It requires space to feel, to rebuild, to shift old habits and forge new ones. And when too many eyes are on you, that process can be rushed or reshaped into something it was never meant to be. Give yourself the grace to heal without an audience. Give your future the space to unfold without the pressure of commentary. You're not behind because you're quiet. You're not lost because you're private. You're protecting something precious, and that's a strength most won't understand. Let your silence be your sanctuary. Let it be the space where your confidence grows, your purpose deepens, and your vision becomes unstoppable. You don't have to explain what you're doing. You don't have to justify why you've gone quiet. Sometimes the greatest moves are made in moments no one else sees. And when the results appear, they will speak for themselves, louder than words ever could. There is a quiet strength in walking your path without needing an audience. The more you understand the weight of your goals, the less you feel the need to announce them. This is not because you doubt yourself, but because you know that some things grow better in silence. Privacy is not a barrier to connection. It is a boundary that protects clarity. When you choose to keep your process sacred, you make room for deeper focus, stronger alignment, and pure intention. You begin to realize that your energy is not infinite and should not be spent explaining what you're building to those who neither contribute to it nor understand its purpose. You are not being distant. You are being devoted to your purpose, to your healing, to your calling. The need to be seen can be a distraction disguised as ambition. Social validation can become a trap where the approval of others begins to dictate your direction. But true fulfillment doesn't come from applause. It comes from alignment. When you learn to move without needing acknowledgement, you unlock a different kind of power. You free yourself from performance and step into authenticity. You begin to measure progress by your own standards, not someone else's expectations. And in that space of self-trust, your actions become more intentional, your vision more refined, and your steps more confident. The spotlight is no longer the goal. The work itself becomes the reward. Not everyone deserves access to your journey. Not everyone has the capacity to hold your vision or the emotional maturity to support it. When you share prematurely, you invite opinions that may cloud your judgment or discourage your momentum. Sometimes the people closest to you carry their own fears, their own doubts, and their own limitations, and unintentionally project them onto you. If you are not rooted firmly in your purpose, those projections can cause you to question what you once felt certain about. That's why silence is a shield. It gives you the space to grow your confidence before you face criticism. It allows you to shape your vision before it's subjected to misunderstanding. Privacy also creates a safe space for trial and error. It gives you the freedom to fail without judgment and the freedom to evolve without explanation. Growth is not linear, and it is often uncomfortable. If you constantly feel the need to report your every move, you begin to edit your progress for presentation rather than authenticity. You skip steps, you avoid discomfort, you shape your actions around perception, and slowly you drift away from your true path. But when you move in silence, you allow yourself to be honest. You allow yourself to go through the full process, unfiltered, unperformed, and uninterrupted. There is something incredibly empowering about choosing not to share. It's not about secrecy or distrust, it's about discernment. You understand that the more you protect your focus, the more progress you can make. You learn to trust that when the time is right, your results will speak for you. You begin to walk with quiet confidence, knowing that not every part of your journey is meant for display. You are no longer trying to prove anything. You are simply becoming what you know you were meant to be. And that kind of growth doesn't need to be witnessed to be real. Let others wonder. Let them make assumptions. Let them notice the silence. What they don't see is the discipline, the sacrifice, the late nights, the internal work. What they don't hear is the self-talk, the strategic thinking, the vision being built brick by brick. And that's okay, because success built in privacy is often the most powerful. It is stable. It is strong. It is sincere. It is not shaped by outside pressure, but by internal purpose. And when it finally shows up, it doesn't need to announce itself. It simply arrives, full, whole, and undeniable. One of the most powerful decisions you can make on your journey to success is the choice to protect your process. Not everything needs to be shared, explained, or revealed. There is real strength in allowing yourself to grow privately, in choosing not to hand your vision to people who haven't earned the right to see it. In a culture that rewards constant updates and overexposure, keeping your journey sacred becomes an act of discipline and deep self-respect. Privacy doesn't mean you lack ambition. It means you understand the importance of timing, of focus, and of keeping your energy clean from unnecessary input. You aren't hiding because you're afraid. You're building quietly because you're committed. And that quiet commitment will take you further than any public display ever could. Success is not always about how fast you move or how loudly you do it. It's about how intentionally you walk each step. When you constantly feel the need to share your progress, your attention shifts from doing the work to talking about the work. That distraction can slow you down. It invites opinions, questions, and comparisons that do nothing but drain the energy you could have used to build. Privacy is your shield. It gives you space to think clearly, plan carefully, and act without performance. It allows you to stay connected to the deeper reason behind your efforts without losing sight of your priorities in the noise of public reaction. When you don't share everything, you are in control of your narrative. You can change direction, pause, pivot, or start over without having to explain yourself to anyone. That freedom is crucial. It gives you space to explore what works and discard what doesn't without the fear of judgment or misunderstanding. Growth is not always glamorous. It is often messy, uncomfortable, and slow, but when you move privately, you give yourself the grace to be human. You stop measuring your steps by someone else's clock. You stop seeking reassurance and start building self-trust. That shift in mindset makes you unshakable because your belief isn't rooted in applause, it's rooted in truth. There will always be people who feel entitled to your progress. They will ask what you're working on, expect updates, or even question your silence. But you don't owe anyone an explanation for prioritizing your focus. You don't have to perform your healing, your goals, or your transformation for the comfort of others. The people who truly support you won't need constant access to believe in your growth. They will respect the boundaries you set. And those who don't, their discomfort is not your responsibility. Your journey is yours. You are allowed to protect it without guilt. The beautiful thing about privacy is that it sharpens your intentions. You begin to do things for yourself, not for recognition, not for approval, but because they align with who you are becoming. You are no longer motivated by being seen. You are driven by purpose. That internal motivation creates a depth of success that goes beyond the surface. It's not about just achieving something. It's about becoming someone. And who you become in private often determines how long you can sustain your success in public. Let people wonder, let them make assumptions. While they are busy talking, you'll be busy building. And eventually, the time will come when what you've created can no longer be ignored. But by then, you won't need to explain how you got there. Your life will speak for itself. Your peace will show. Your results will shine, not because you shouted, but because you stayed true. The power of privacy is not in the silence itself. It's in what that silence protects: your vision, your energy, your evolution, and your truth.